right. In this episode of My Mic Sounds Nice, we review 2021 through a My Mic Sounds Nice lens.
Welcome to another episode of My Mic Sounds Nice, a freestyle conversation about health, relationships, and culture. I am one of your hosts, Timothy Jones, always glad to be in the building.
My Mic Sounds Nice. This is Kevin, aka Reggie Jacks, coming from the Bronx. Welcome.
My mic sounds nice. This is Aaron from Long Island. How y'all doing?
2021, what a year.
Yeah, man. Went by quick, didn't it?
No doubt. I think we should put a disclaimer. We are speaking about stories that touched and resonated with us. We are not presenting an end all be all list, and we're doing that intentionally because we want to be interactive with our listening and viewing audience. So, if there's certain stories that were meaningful for you and you just knew we were going to cover it and we didn't, please shout us out with what we missed in your opinion. And if you don't like how we presented something, share that. But if you feel we knocked it out the park from a My Mic Sounds Nice point of view, then throw up the fingers too. Give us a peace sign and a review. All right. So yo,
That's right.
A, let's
Yep.
spark this off.
Don't forget to like and subscribe us on YouTube, Twitter. Follow us at Instagram and Facebook.
And for the
Um,
podcast, Spotify, Apple, whatever
you get your streaming,
streaming service you utilize, you can like us and follow us and subscribe.
no doubt. So obviously, fellas, the first thing you talk about this year is January 6th. What a mess.
What a
What an
mess.
absolute mess, man. Donald Trump, the first president in over 130 years to not end up at the inauguration of the following president. So this was a whole thing of not just the riot, but led by a man that got people all bent out of shape because he couldn't accept losing. And then he showed his pettiness by not being able to put the country before his own feelings. And I think those people really never understood Donald Trump. They thought they did, but he was always a narcissist. It was always about how he felt. He had a aversion to losing, and he couldn't accept the fact that he lost. So he came up with a delusion. And unfortunately, we're at a state in our country where people are okay with that delusion and showed up in DC, in Washington, believing Democrats were molesting children and eating, drinking blood, and that Trump won. So
Yeah, but like I say, it showed a fracture within the country that is still here. Watching it, you definitely thought it was hard to cognitively connect to your mind what you were seeing. Like this isn't real, but it really is real, and it's something that is a stain on our country. That regardless of what side of the fence you may fall on, it definitely was a stain that was seen by the world, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, to me, the January 6th thing, it revealed the fracture that's always been here. It was just very super, definitely exploited by Donald Trump. Um, and just kind of the treatment, everybody supports back the blue, except when they were busy beating the blue down at those moments.
yeah,
But the thing that really resonated, the thing that I can't, the one picture that I have is not just necessarily all the brutality, but at the end when they started clearing the Capitol, and there was that police officer holding that white woman's hand as she was walking down the steps, escorting her down the steps after she had just committed, we know at least one crime, possibly multiple crimes, and how they just let people stream out. My 15-year-old son was like, "Yo, what are they doing? How come they're not arresting these people?" And I really think it would have been more important to round them up right there. I think that was more important than to go ahead and push through the election component because I'm sure you let thousands of people free, and
yeah.
that's very disappointing to me.
It's almost certain that certain people got away with it. Although the FBI is doing a phenomenal job, but those people are on trial right now for their life, and Donald Trump is playing golf. And I think that's the lesson.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that is true. So don't claim to be part of a crew if when it really gets thick, your leader is nowhere to be found. So
Abs-
he's giving you the battle cry from the tower, and then he cuts his power off so you can't see him. But
Yeah.
also you talked about that he was the one of very few presidents to not show up at the inauguration. 2021, the inauguration introduced to the world a beautiful young lady named Amanda Gorham. She was the at that time 20 the youngest inaugural poet, a young African American sister, and she recited a poem called "The Hill We Climb." And I'll just share a brief quote from it, and then get your thoughts on the young wordsmith. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man.
Yeah.
I, her watching her speak, kind of the grace, the how striking she was just in the clothes, how she was, the outfit, the yellow, and the grace. It was a it was a high moment. It was a proud moment. I felt like a lot of people seemed to really enjoy that, where it was kind of universally praised, and it's a wonderful moment, particularly for poetry.
No, absolutely. I definitely want to give a shout out to CBS because they was on Amanda Gorman at least a year before anyone else. With highlighting her on CBS Sunday Morning for Thanksgiving and other circumstances. So no, she's definitely a talented young poet, and I was very excited in the moment and really blown away by her. And I'm less so now that I'm almost a year away from it. However, what I think is most important about her is that she is representative of the youth in this country right now that want to change the world, that really want to
Yeah,
dig into the problems of society and get to
yeah,
work. And we
yeah,
haven't had that in probably 20 years
yeah.
with young people.
That's a brilliant point. That we would be making a mistake to lift her up to the point that we think she stands alone. But she happened to be the voice that day,
Yeah.
representing a generation of young people that are critically and lovingly critiquing where we are as a nation, but still speaking with a hope that they will have the opportunity to be the fulfillment of ancestors' dreams and dreams of the elders that are in their lives. So definitely wanted to shout her out as we continue to flow through 2021.
All right. For me, my first story is about HBCUs, how they were still rising. In 2020, after the racial reckoning, people started donating money, finances to different things. We had Jeff Bezos' wife um, donate millions or $1 billion all over to a number of different HBCUs, and there was a lot of different programs and things. But then in 2021, the trend kind of continued. We started off with Kamala Harris being inaugurated as the vice president, complete with Howard University marching down Pennsylvania Street with her, which was a
HU?
which is a fantastic moment for
No doubt.
us. And then we had Deion Sanders going to Jackson State, and now their games being on ESPN. And that was the end. They had a spring season last year and the fall season. They had a very well season. They were victors of the. Are they the SWAC?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes, it's swag.
they were SWAC
yeah.
champions,
They
but
were they were SWAC
They
champions, and
got
they
smacked.
I'm about to say, but we all represent the BX, so I was a little torn. I was rolling with Prime, but You know, South Carolina. I mean,
They
had,
a
they
six and
had,
what they 6-6 and they smacked them.
They smacked me. Even their punter was mad hyped up there. But
yeah,
and
no
and
doubt.
it, and then we had Felicia Rashad, Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Nicole Hannah Jones all taking prominent positions on the Howard faculty. And it's just been a great year where things are kind of continuing on. And we wound up with one of the 4 or 5 star recruits in quarterbacks in football leaves Florida State, a BCS Bowl team, and goes to Jackson State to bring his talents, back to the SWAC and HBCU. So I think it's hopefully things are going to continue to go on. We might get that Flutie effect.
Nah, it's true because I'm hoping that young black men who play sports begin to realize they are the talent. They are what people want to consume, not the university. So wherever you go, you will be found. And if a whole bunch of young black men are playing in the MEAC or playing in the SWAC, those institutions and those conferences will be elevated, and they'll be on television even more, and that will be important for the universities because that brings money. And I would say, Kev, I love the fact that you pointed out the faculty that have gone to these universities, but more importantly, I'm happy with the amount of money that has been going to these universities, not just in 2021, but for the last few years. Things have been that boat, that tanker in the ocean has been slowly turning uh, to go upstream for black colleges. So it's a great time for black colleges, and I hope they can that they can
Captain
turn
Ross.
this into a permanent change of
Yeah.
positivity for black colleges.
You know, for us, we were finishing our college. We were in college and finishing our college careers when Different World came on, which was a fictitious show, but it just put HBCUs a part of the paradigm of popular culture. And that was fiction based on reality, and you saw a boom as far as people applying to schools. I really love the fact that we're able to witness in real time, in the real world, HBCUs coming to the forefront and being just something that is talked about and viewed by young people, so that now you'll have young people who may have been reading Ta-Nehisi's book and it's like, oh, he's a professor, I want to go there. I heard about the 1619 project, I want to go there. Or I want to, play at a school where I can go and do different things that these colleges now may be in a position to offer that they couldn't do to the same scale when we were drawn to HBCUs. So hope the momentum keeps up and the band keeps playing and our drum line keeps improving and all that other good stuff.
Go Thunder Machine.
No doubt. Shout out to Chris Washington.
That's how university is a marching band for all of you
That's the drum line.
black colleges. That's the drum line.
Yeah. And if you don't know, then you go figure it out.
All right. But before we move on, I'm just going to list a couple of things, and you guys let me know if something jumps out at you, kind of a little bit quarter by quarter. So like after we get through the spring, I guess the latter part of the spring, we have things like the war on knowledge. The first voting rights restriction laws take place in Georgia. We got a bunch of trials and things going around racial justice. The first trial begins of the year. The CDC offers updates. That's going to be a recurring theme. Then we got social media versus vaccinations really jumps off. Social media versus masks. Social media versus education. Social media in the stock market.
4 times.
We got stock market. What was that? GameStop. and things got so bad. Even the Kentucky Derby winner was caught cheating. And got
Bob Baffert.
Yo.
Bob Baffert. They got him.
And then every quarter had shootings. Shootings in South Carolina. 7 people died by a former football player and wound up having CTE. Indianapolis, 9 people died. FedEx 9. There was just a bunch of shootings, tragedies, all throughout the year.
In the midst of that list, just the seemingly unexplainable but very explainable weather phenomenons that has happened and is continuing to happen. Like as we wrap the year up, you have wildfires in Colorado where they were talking about winds that were blowing where the fire was moving the length of a football field in a second because you had 115, 120 mile per hour winds, and most of the time it's the end of the year. You think about Colorado, that's where you go to get your high end skiing, and it's so dry there that you literally have fires and then the tornadoes. So it's been a lot.
Yeah, nah, that's a for the first quarter, Kev. That's a heck of a list, man. For 4 months, that's a heck of a list. And the social media dominated
So
the conversation. So let's
in
be
love, our producer, the quarter is 3 months.
uh, yeah,
But the list was so long, it felt like four. It felt like six.
yeah,
It felt like the year. So
no,
turning the
definitely.
page, yo, hey, what say you?
On
What hits you?
with what you mean? What's next
Yeah, for
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah.
Derek Chauvin and Kyle Rittenhouse.
Whoa.
That
Man.
both trials going on at the same time, two drastically different results, and in the middle of that sandwich, black justice can't stand up, but gets up on one knee with the Derek Chauvin trial. And it's like, look what it took for that to happen. You had to witness a man being murdered on videotape, and it was still a question on whether or not the perpetrator, because that's what he is, not a cop, would the perpetrator go to jail? So I would say that weighed extremely heavily on me. And
Yeah.
then Kyle Rittenhouse, I learned a lot during the trial, and it wasn't as cut and dry as when I first saw the video, but it definitely was a young 17-year-old being influenced by social media, by people just talking, no one ever questioning, everyone joining their tribes, and he thought he could go outside and play SWAT slash paramedic slash Navy SEAL and got people killed. So those trials really resonated for me at the start, what's that, April? So,
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah. And also in April, we had the female cop with the taser. That occurred in April also. So that was a heavy month and a lot was going on.
Yeah. You're
Uh,
talking about the former officer Potter
yes, Ken
who
Potter. Yes,
killed Dante Wright.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Whew.
So
That was heavy, but it's and we still didn't get the summer. But
yeah, man.
you know, I think when you talked about black justice and what it took, and in some ways, it really was accountability because we all know the sad reality. If that young teenage girl was not filming with her phone,
Yes,
Derek Chauvin would still be an officer because that initial police report that was written for that event, oh, there was no charges. There was nothing in there that would have made you think about, pursuing charges, and that's something that is painful, a
and
painful reality pill to swallow.
and think about this, Tim. What if she only recorded for 2 minutes? Since you bring up her recording, what if her recording was only 2 minutes or 4 minutes? The fact that she recorded the whole thing
Yes.
is what makes it so powerful because you witness a life being taken, the
Yes.
entire journey.
Yeah.
So that point about her that you bring up is really important. And most people wouldn't record the entire 9 minutes. They would get tired of holding up their phone for that long. So kudos to her.
Yeah.
Kev.
I think one of the things that I learned through the trials was that Wisconsin has some real strange laws. They have some real strange laws that actually put people in danger, protect people, and I wonder if they are actually correct. Like one of the things where you allow people to get up and testify about how great the victim was. And I know they recently used that in the Dante Wright trial, talking about him just kind of the impact of the loss. Now, typically we have that at the sentencing, but when that's part of the trial, my concern is when it's used in that way, in a positive way. More often than not, it's going to it's going to be used in a negative way against us.
Absolutely.
And I think that a critical lens to kind of the laws that exist and how we're actually enacting them is something that we need to kind of continue to push and further along the way. Because while some people were to be able to be convicted and others weren't, some of them required some law changes, which took place in Georgia over the Ahmaud Arbery killing. You know, where the citizen justice. So it's great that these things are being brought to light. We're seeing trials. We're seeing how the law works and what changes need to be made.
We need to also get rid of qualified immunity. But not just throw it out the window. We need something that protects cops. Cops should be protected. Making a split-second decision and that whole storyline that you hear, it does have merit. It does have merit. So we need to find a way to protect police, but also protect society more. And right now it's completely one thing. Protect the police and the society be damned. And that doesn't work.
You know, that's a great, those 2 points are a great way to kind of segue. Because the thing that when we want people to understand is the things that we are talking about that happened in 2021, each one of these are worthy of their own show. And a number of the things that we actually are bringing up, if you go and look at the podcast episodes throughout the year, there are certain ones where we did dedicate either a segment or an entire show to. But Aaron, I love what you're talking about the issue of the qualified immunity for the police and where that needs to not be totally thrown out but tweaked. But Kev, you had mentioned critical, and I think for a lot of people in society in late 2020 but throughout 2021, the notion of critical race theory and what that is and what it isn't is something that just dominated the headlines, and it went from the docile school board meetings that most people don't go to that being the place where it'd be like, let's get ready to rumble. You know, in this corner we got the body snatcher. Shout out to Red Man. You know? The P Funkadelic when I got you. And in actuality, critical race theory is that theory that looks at the racial biases that are embedded in the laws. And that's something that, Kev, you've always talked about, that even with the Kyle Rittenhouse case and with the Ahmaud Arbery, that like at some point we have to change the laws because you want a fair legal system that would work for us regardless of the color of our skin, and how that has been flipped to mean that critical race theory is saying that all white people are racist and so it can't be taught in school because my children feel guilty and all of that. Like even that in and of itself, it just shows how twisted in the power of words and how in 2021 we are still living and feeling the impact of the former president, Donald Trump.
Yeah, you know, I as an educator, as a longtime educator, it really breaks my heart to listen to this critical race theory fight, which is not authentic and not even real, because none of them, most of them don't even know what critical race theory is. But really,
And nobody's in law school.
and none of these people are in law
Yes.
school. But really, they're fighting to not teach children. Is ultimately what's really
The
occurring.
the truth.
To not teach them the truth.
Truth, yes.
And or to just deny that it exists. We're not even going to acknowledge it. Like they're going after Martin Luther King books about the And, and now you have certain states who are following the Texas abortion law, where they're creating laws where they're saying if there's somebody objects to a book and the teacher still leaves that book or materials, they still continue to use those materials, they can be sued in a civil trial by somebody. So they're taking the state out of the enforcement issue, and because the Supreme Court kind of let that law go, at least thus far. So they're finding continual ways to continue to push this theory. And the unfortunate part is we know where this is going to lead. It's going to lead to a bunch of people not knowing things, not being aware, and continual racism, systemic racism is just being more emboldened.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the problem with their approach and what they don't understand is that you can create laws, you can stem the tide, you can slow things down, you can even change things for a while. But throughout history, the best ideas win, and they don't have the best ideas. And to think that you're gonna not teach your children about history or compromise history and find a way to continue the status quo of the power structure in which white people are subtly given a superior platform in history, and we don't want to look at all the pockmarks that any group of people would have. It's not that, no, this is an individual attack on white America, but historically there were things that were done in this country that we should teach. And I think we need to take a look at South Africa and their acknowledgement of racism and their reconciliation and the way they approached healing. And America is doing the complete opposite with critical race theory, where they're trying to take any type of uh, any type of educational advancements where we speak the truth about slavery and civil rights and Reconstruction, and call it critical race theory and get rid of it. And I
You know,
think that's a mistake, because in the long run you lose that way, because that's
just
not the best idea. People understand the truth.
two quick things. More times than not, you remember when you were a child, that if you were told not to do something, it actually made you want to go do it that much more. And the fact that they were making so much noise about it backfired, because it made more people begin to study, like, okay, well, exactly what is this? And then as you begin to study what it is, it just brings to light the total hypocrisy to what it is that they're doing. And the fact is that the noise that you're making about critical race theory is the proof that there was a need for critical race theory. And Kev, we've dealt with K through 12 education. I've never gone to a K through 12 school where critical race theory was a subject. As you said, this was a theory that was looking at laws. And we're living in a time of an opioid crisis. And you can't tell me, and we're old enough where it's like, hey, I tell people all the time, crack was handled as a criminal offense, opioids is being handled as a health issue
Hmm.
by law. If that is not proof for, there is a thing called critical race theory to look at laws that was supposed to be made to be neutral, where you had, powdered cocaine getting a slap on the wrist, and if you had a rock, you was thrown in prison with the key being thrown away. So we'll continue to watch and see what happens. I hope, if nothing else, it makes us in our communities pay more attention to those school board elections, what happens in schools on that local level, because it's real easy to just focus on a federal, but there's so much that impacts our lives that really are based on those local elections. So I hope we pay more attention to what's happening in school, whether it's in person, hybrid, or online.
All right. For me, the thing that stood out is, and really throughout the year, but it really kind of really reared into form through the through critical race theory and other things is kind of the impact of social media. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's something. I'm just saying we got some real problems with it though. Like Facebook. Like Facebook is like we got on Facebook. It's bad. Got people, kids hating themselves, comparing themselves to Instagram. It's bad. But then it's good for doing your scientific research when we're using we're finding out about COVID and reasons not to take the vaccine and ivermectin and so. It's great when we got that direct engagement for these stars. They got this direct engagement until Nicki Minaj starts talking about her cousin's her cousin's friend's private parts.
Yeah.
And the impact that it had on him. Social media. It's good when the general public gets to run up the stock on GameStop and make all this money. But institutional investors now they got a problem with it. No, we got to stop this. This is they're giving advice, and all of social media's dangers are really kind of out there at this point in time, and people are struggling what to do, how to regulate it, what role they want the government to play, and to me it's just something that it's a problem that has to be dealt with. I just don't know if we have the answers at this point, but it's something that we definitely have to do.
I mean, the most disturbing part that, and all positive things have a negative, but the most disturbing part about social media is that it has ended fact. And that's the most scary thing, because if a society cannot agree on what truth is, then you don't have a society. If I can move the goalpost on any issue, and I can have an opposing view, and my opposing view can be ridiculous, but now in our society, media will cover both sides. Well, you can't cover one side without covering the other, and the other side has no merit and doesn't deserve to be covered. Now you're debating things, and you end up with the earth is flat. We didn't go to the moon. This vaccine is X, Y, and Z. And to me, that's the most scary thing, because you have to have a place of truth where you can agree on things. We can't even agree on if someone won an election, something that you physically count and have a actual number, something that you can quantify. I mean, I don't. That's
Venezuela,
a scary place
the ballot
to be.
boxes.
Yeah, that's a scary place to be as a society, and if we don't fix that quick, I think that's the type of thing that can destabilize a society. Really, I'm not trying to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but we've never had that in history. Never.
No, you are. It brought us January 6th. I mean, let's be real.
But you are, but you're accurate, and you being someone as a trained writer, I think at times we gloss over the term social media. That there was a time where media came with this presumed standard of training, therefore there was a level of reliability. You learn how to fact check, you check your resources. So that was what media was. And so when you were consuming your media, there was a notion of, I'm going to someone with some level of expertise in what it is that they're speaking about, or just their expertise in being able to relay what is being presented. When you make social media, that comes together, you actually create the playground for opinion sharing. And then you get this hodgepodge where then you had the media having to better connect with its people through social media. So now you get opinion mixed with fact, mixed with fantasy, mixed with fiction. And then you fast forward, and then you have critical literacy skills being removed from schools. So you honestly have people who are not media literate. I'm not saying illiterate, not from the standpoint of reader, but not where it's like, okay, if we were having conversations back in the day, our source would be like, oh, I read this in the paper, or I did this, where it's like now you could see something on television and then go to social media and it's like, oh, until I see it on Twitter, that person didn't die. Or or
Yeah.
based on how many times it comes up, like until it's a hashtag, is it real? And that does put us in a very dangerous, dangerous place.
Absolutely. I mean, it's I'm concerned.
Yeah, no doubt. But we're not saying because hey, you're probably engaging with us through social media. So like Kev said, he's not gonna say that it's good, not gonna say that it's bad, but I do think it amplifies the intentionality and mindset of the user, and that's where it's eye opening.
One thing that would help, because Kevin said he doesn't know where to go, and this is a small thing, but the news centers need to not be profit centers, and our golden age of news in America, the news departments were loss centers. They didn't make money, but as part of getting the FCC license, you know, networks were okay with that. I'll lose money on the news and I'll make money on Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Now, news centers are some of the greatest profit margins of a network, and because of that, that influences the type of content that you have.
Yeah.
And I think if we go back to almost, if the FCC said, you know what, news centers can't even be a profit center, it would change the news departments drastically.
And I know as we wrap up, and Kev, definitely want to give you the last word. We're all old enough, and we're growing up in New York City, where the difference between news on Channel 7 or news on Channel 9 or 4 may have just been our preference of anchor, whereas now you have different news outlets where this wouldn't be reported on Fox, this will be on CNN, or you're going to get a very opinionated bent of that same story. Like we started off talking about January 6th, that if my television was locked to station A, I'm viewing January 6th totally different than you may get it if you're locked in to station B. Whereas when we were coming up, like I said, it was just like, yo, do you get Sports Machine or do you watch Warner Wolf? Like it was kind of the same, thing, but just the preference in how it was presented. So I think those differences are something that social media and the profit generation really fuels.
Yeah, I think overall, and going back to Tim's point about just critical race theory and just critical thought, that's what has to happen. Like people have to be taught. I know when I was in school, and we were all in school at the same time, they taught us how to read a paper. They broke out the Times. It was like, this is how you read the New York Times. These are the different sections. This is how to be critical of what you read, the who, what, why, when, where, all of those different things.
Yeah.
And I think it has to happen with social media. It plays such a large role in young people's lives. And for us to not kind of get behind that and control of that, we're just kind of setting them up for failure.
No doubt.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
An op-ed is an op-ed. It's not the front page.